From the combined crew of blindandroidusers.com and accessibleandroid.com, it's time for your favorite Android podcast. Kick back now and enjoy another fine episode from these fanboys and gals as they navigate Android from a blindness perspective. And now, here's your crew. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 238 of the Blind Android Users podcast. We're recording today, Saturday, June the 28th, 2025. I'm Warren Carr in the state of Washington.
I'm John Dyer from Virginia.
Karine from Lebanon.
And it's Sally from Samsun, Turkey.
And we have a guest joining us, a very important guest for that matter. We got Philip Bennefall from Sweden. Philip, say hello.
Hello, everybody.
Coming up in this episode, we have the following lineup. We have the Android Basics, where we talk about Android 16, QPR1 Beta 2. And in the spotlight, we're chatting with our guest, Philip, and talking about a very important item here. We're talking about the Blastbay TTS for Windows, which is a precursor to the Android version. I'm hoping, though, that Philip does that because, as I said, I'm going to turn that wolf loose and have him huff and puff down his house if we don't have one for Android. So that's what we have for you coming up in this episode. Let's do some world check. Being John, let's get started with you, my man. What's going on? I know it's hot there on the East Coast, hitting 100 at 3-degree weather there. Yeah. How is it going?
I normally don't like talking about weather, but it's very hot. It's like record-breaking hot here. I think every day it was at least like 96 all week, and that's before humidity. In this area, like basically the feels like temperature was like at around 112, like with the humidity. And we even had a big drawbridge around here actually had to get closed 3 days in a row to hose it down because apparently it got so hot that the bridge expanded too big to close again. And that's never been an issue. That bridge has been there for like 20 years. So yeah, definitely hotter than it's ever been in this area.
Wow. Amazing. Sally, what's going on in that Turkey city, Samsung city in the Turkey, whatever, eating a lot of turkey. So what's going on?
Well, we're exactly in the age of summer. It's 28, or in other words, it's 82 here, and it's sunny, it's burning. The daytime is burning, but in the nighttime, it's super warm, like super cool. That's what I like, especially after 7 or 8. Probably I will be going out after this podcast, so I cannot wait for that. And how are you?
Nice. Oh, I'm doing well. A lot of things going on here. One of my buddies not feeling so well, so this week has been very rough and kind of reminding me of Austin passing away last year, and my friend is not feeling too well. We're not sure if he's going to make it or not, but I'll keep you guys updated. Otherwise, we're doing okay. Weather-wise, though, it's not been too bad, been in the 70s and all of that. So this has been a great week weather-wise, but it's going to be warming up the next 4 days, so probably up in the 80s and probably maybe 90s, who knows, but that's a summary of it.
So speaking of Austin, it's already 1 year passed away, and I just want to remember him once again, and I want to appreciate whatever he did for the community once again.
Indeed. We'll miss Austin. We'll always miss Austin, and it was such a sad year last year, and this month of June just simply reminds me of that. Was that the 24th he passed away? I don't remember the exact date, either 24th or 26th, between one of those two. And our, condolences and, thoughts are there with his family. Karine, girl, still looking pretty there in Lebanon. What's going on with you, girl?
Hello, I'm doing well here. Well, actually, beside the fan. And everything's going well here. Actually, it's summer also. So we're having hot weather, kind of. It's reaching 30. And I'm just doing doing well until now with that summer and hot weather. That's good.
It's good for you. Stay indoors and cook a lot of food. Philip, let's hear from you, my man. I know we're going to be talking with you here, but what's going on in Sweden? I don't know of any city in Sweden. So tell us where you're coming from in Sweden and how it is out there. You guys probably nice and cool, right?
Oh, I'm in Stockholm, which is the capital. And no, it's not that cool. It's I guess especially next week we're going to have a heat wave. It's going to be reaching 35 Celsius. So no, it's not that cold.
Interesting.
Well, I never thought that it could be that like 35 in Stockholm. Wow.
No, a couple of years ago we had another heat wave. We were up to 40. That was like a record-breaking temperature.
It's not often, right? Yeah.
No, it's not often. I mean, we've had snow on Midsummer Eve before, so that
Yeah.
happens too.
But in the wintertime, you had like -20s back in this year, right?
Yeah, that does happen too.
Yeah.
I mean, I know in the 1940s we had like -30 degrees, I think, or -40 even. So it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I seen snow on July 4th back in Denver. I mean, not in Colorado, when we were driving up to Grand Junction. So it's very funny to see snow trying to fall in the summer, but it happens. Welcome to episode 238, guys. And now the Android Basics segment. This is a segment where we discuss the things that power your device from behind the scenes. And now, here's this week's episode, Android Basics. Chugging along, let's get started with the Android Basics. And today we're talking about the Android 16 QPR1 Beta 2.1. Google dropped a low 4-point-something MB that I got. John, did you install it? Maybe you didn't even bother.
I did not bother. I didn't even know about it until just now.
Yeah, so it's that small, and most especially, there were just 4 fixes that Google dropped with this, point update. And here are the 4-point updates that were dropped. We got the following. 1, fix the approve button in the device admin settings, wherein it is transparent and invisible. 2, fix the lock screen sound toggle where it shows as off, but sound still plays. 3, fixed the Android back button where it intermittently fails to function as intended. And 4, fix a crash in the launcher when swiping from the bottom. I mean, so these are things that some people have been observing. And if you haven't observed that, some people have, and hence the reason why we have that little update. But that's all that we have for this Android 16 QPR1 Beta 2.1 update. And of course, Samsung wasn't sitting around. They also pushed out the June update. If you have the S23 series and some of those, they also got that June update. I didn't bother to see if mine got it or not, but it's there. So if you have one of those, smash that check for updates to see if you have it.
And I do want to say about the Pixel update. I was just kidding. I have heard about this update before just now. So I just wanted to add that because this has the June security patch with it, 2.1, beta 2.1, you are now able to, if you've been on, now this is probably very few people, but if you've been on Android 16 stable and you've wanted to get into the beta, you could not install the QPR beta because it was running on an older security patch than what you had. So it would not let you enroll in the beta and get an update. But as of 2.1, now because it's at the same security patch level, you are able to enroll. So if you've had that issue wanting to enroll in the beta and not being able to, now you are able to enroll.
Welcome to the Spotlight segment. This is a segment dedicated to interviews with developers or interesting happenings in the world of Android. And now for this week's episode, here's your spotlight. Moving on, let's get on to the spotlight. And of course, we're talking about the Blastbay TTS, and that's why we have our friend Philip here. And Philip, we'll be talking about this because this is a very important issue when it comes to Android. I know we've been looking for TTS engines all these years, and we've been, pining away to see someone come up with something else. And when the news came through that there was this guy named Philip Bennefall who was going to be producing a TTS engine for Android, we were kind of flabbergasted and thinking, that's an impossibility. We haven't had any in a while. I mean, we had some that are kind of pseudo TTS engines. And I mean, yes, indeed, you still don't have it yet. But of course, you're fulfilling what you are saying you are going to do. You are going to start with Windows first. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, Philip, and then take us down that journey of how it is that you came to start working on the Blastbay TTS for Windows.
Sure. So my name is Philip Bennefall. I am 35 years old. I'm from Stockholm, Sweden, as I mentioned. And I've been a developer for about 15 years now, something like that, at least professionally. I've always had an interest in TTS. I mean, I'm totally blind as well, so I use it all the time. And I mean, I've always, since I can remember, growing up, I've been fascinated by it. And when I was about 21, 22, I started to think, how fascinating it would be to make my own. I tried and I failed. So I tried several times, and I learned a lot with those failures. But then, a few years ago, I started to do it more in earnest, and I've been sort of combining different technologies, the older style type of synthesis, which is called format synthesis, with the more modern approach where they use neural networks, which is a type of, people call it AI, to make the, sound quality better and so on and so forth. So I've been working on that for, I guess, full time now. It's been about 2.5 years approximately. And I've had a lot of ups and downs, and ultimately, there's still improvements to be made. But about a week ago, I launched the first 2 voices for US English for Windows. And I mean, aside from doing other voices in other languages and other accents and so on, the next platform I'm going to target is Android, because I know that there's a need for it, and Android is, quite friendly to developers in terms of, the barrier to entry for developing for the platform is not that high. So that's my next target in terms of platforms.
Let's talk about failures. You are mentioning that you failed earlier on, like a decade ago, and or things of that nature. But though there's always something there at the silver lining, at the bottom lining there for failures, because then it keeps you going, doesn't it? The more you fail, the better you become and figure out why you are failing and all of that. And so you decided you're going to do this, and here you are, you got it, and we got it introduced on our email group there. You got a couple of voices for Windows. How hard has this been for you? Are you anticipating, though, Philip, that it's going to be harder for Android, or when compared to developing it for this Windows, which you have successfully gotten down, and you got a couple of voices going for it, as you indicated? And if you wouldn't mind, tell our listeners the couple of voices you also have going for Windows.
Yeah, so the 2 voices that are available right now, they're called Richard and Libby. So there's one male and one female, and they're both US English. They work with, they're so-called SAPI 5 engines, which means that they work with any software that uses the Microsoft Speech API version 5. That includes, screen readers, it includes games, other software basically that reads text using that infrastructure. And in terms of Android and just smaller devices in general. I have some work left to do regarding optimization, meaning it needs to respond even more quickly. It's basically fast enough for desktop environments right now, barring some of the older hardware, which still has issues with it because it's a little bit too demanding for some older laptops. I've got some reports regarding that. But so, my next step that I've already started working on is optimizing it's called inference time, like how long it takes between you pressing a key or tapping the screen or whatever to you actually hearing the speech. And I'm aiming for something around the 10 millisecond mark, which is, it's if I can get there, that's quite good. And it just means that the voice feels responsive. It feels like it follows your commands quickly, which is, as everybody will know, it's essential when you're using it as a screen reader voice, whether it be on a phone, or on a desktop machine. So yeah, my next endeavor is to take the existing architecture and reduce the time that it takes to respond further without sacrificing quality. And then, just packaging it for other platforms. Like I said, Android is the first one in line. But I'm also intending to go to others like, Linux, Mac, iOS, all of those. So all of those are on my bucket list. But Android is number one. Primarily because I see that there's a lot of interest, from the Android community, but also because, like I said, it is easier to develop for in some respects. At least that's been my experience.
It's good to hear that you're working on reducing the latency. That seems to always be a complaint of people with TTS engines, and obviously because you're a blind user and you know how important it is. But I'll say that I've tried it, and it seems pretty responsive to me. I don't have much experience with different voices. I stay away from third-party TTS engines for the most part, but I have recently switched from narrator to NVDA. So I'm used to Microsoft Jenny, and now I'm back to using Microsoft Zira, and I can definitely notice that it is more responsive than Jenny. So Microsoft's new natural voice, which does have a little bit of a delay on my machine. I tried Libby out. She is more responsive than what I was used to with Jenny, and a little less responsive than Microsoft Zira, but definitely usable. Like I wouldn't notice much of a difference unless I'm trying to. So I think it's actually already pretty responsive how it is now, but it's good to hear that you're trying to improve on that.
Oh, thank you.
I do want to ask you a couple questions about the voices. I'm wondering, are these voices modeled on real people? Did you have to have two people record samples for you, and that's how you built the voice? And if so, are these named after those people? And if not, how did you come up with the names?
Well, yes to both, actually. Yes, they are modeled on real people. And yes, they are actually named, what the people are named. That's not necessarily going to be the case with all my voices. I always ask, the voice talent that I hire, do you want me to call the voice by your name, or should I make up a name? And so far they both said, yeah, just use my name. So, but that's not necessarily always going to be the case. But yes, they are modeled on people who had to record, it's about 12,000 sentences each. So there's a lot of data behind that.
That is a lot.
Yeah, and John is partial to the ladies, so no wonder he likes Libby. He's always like his Jenny, and so having that Libby there, John, I know you actually like that voice, and I hope that we'll have a lot of voices to choose from. That is, if we have a lot of volunteers that would like to volunteer to record those 12,000 sentences. That's a lot of sentences. That's a whole book right there, isn't it, Philip?
Yes, it is. It doesn't always have to be 12,000 sentences. It can be less, but when you're training a model from scratch, when you're not doing what's called fine tuning, then you need a lot more data. Actually, 12,000 is it's too few, actually, but it worked out okay. So, when you make new voices, you can actually take one of the existing ones and then just continue training with less data to get, to get a voice with a lot smaller of a database of recordings. So that's, but it is still, it's a costly process to get the, you have to have a recording studio, because, you can't just do it with like a headset mic, the quality will suffer too much. You have to have a proper recording studio, proper setup, all of that, because that will translate, immediately into what you hear. It will, because the synthesis architecture will model not only the person's voice, but also, what their room sounds like and what their recording equipment sounds like. So, for example, if you're recording and you're far away like this, it's not going to be good. I mean, just giving an extreme example here, but if the audio quality suffers, then so will the voice. So it has to be, really, really good data to start from. And that goes for, regardless of what language you're training on.
That really makes sense because, sometimes you hear some voices that kind of sound like far away, and definitely I noticed that all of the AI voices, lots of them sound closer. So it totally makes sense what you're describing, because if you're sounding up close and personal to the microphone, it's going to sound a whole lot better when the output is put forth. Now, tell us though, as a blind person, I have no knowledge of any coding. I mean, years ago, took some classes to where I was able to develop a little web page, and that was just about it. Now, whenever I hear a blind person, developing software of this nature, and most especially apps, I'm kind of at awe and huge respect for you guys. Tell us, how did it go for you as a blind person? Was it difficult getting into this field to actually start developing, software and all of that good stuff? How long did you have to go to school for and all of that? And were there problems? Do you encounter any difficulties while in school? Because, most of the time the books are not quite available to us, and it's quite a journey because you have to put an extra work as a blind person in everything you do, an extra mile just to get to where you need to go. How was it for you, Philip?
Well, I'm self-taught. Which has its pros and cons. I started learning when I was 11 because I realized at school that all of my sighted friends were playing games, and I found maybe 2 or 3 that I could play. I beat those, and then I realized, okay, there aren't any other games, and I want to play more games. So that's when I thought, okay, I'll just learn to make them myself. That's how I started to learn to code. Now, don't get me wrong, it took a long time before I was proficient enough to actually make something even semi-reasonable. But that's how it started. I started learning at around 11, 12. I released my first commercial game when I was 14. And then I started Blastbay when I was 18. I released another game in 2009. It was called the Q9 action game. So I built that, and then I worked on another project with a friend of mine. We made a music engine for video games. I worked on that for a good 8 years or so, and then about maybe 2.5 years ago, I started working on this TTS venture full time, and here we are. So yes, it has certainly been a process. But I guess I didn't really learn to code from school as such. I took the exam so that I could get my pieces of paper, but I had already learned it at that point. So I kind of did it the slow way, which like I said, has its pros and cons. As opposed to doing it more formally, which sometimes I wish I had, but other times I'm I'm happy with where I'm at. But yeah, certainly, it's not really that much more difficult in general to code when you're blind as opposed to when you're sighted. You have more tools and more resources that are catered to you. But in general, no. I mean, code is just text, so it's more about the way that you learn to think, problem solving, looking for bugs, things like that. That's really what it boils down to is just a way of thinking. Like learning a programming language is relatively trivial. What's not trivial is developing good, stable software that people want to use. That's not trivial, but it is, it is the ultimate goal, and I'm still striving for it.
Sounds really good. Let's talk about the name Blastbay. I want to call it Bay Blaster. Tell us how you came across or you came about using the title Blastbay. Was there something special, or was just something out of the blue?
It was something out of the blue. Back then, domains were scarce. They're even more scarce now. But I was just trying to think of names that I thought sounded fancy at the age of 18, and that's what I came up with. And then blastbay.com happened to be available, so I thought, okay, we'll go with that. Before I called it, I had 2 other names before that, and yeah, they didn't really have the same ring to them. I mean, Blastbay doesn't really mean much of anything. It's just, a name that's short and relatively easy to remember. So that's kind of how that came about. It was more of a what's available kind of thing. And it's so long ago now that I don't remember exactly how the thought processes went, but it's something along those lines.
Great, because I've often wondered as to how people came up with names. And of course, as you indicated, nowadays it's so hard to find a domain name because most everything is taken and all of that. So sometimes you come up with something that sounds kind of different, and yet you're lucky enough to find that it's still available. So I'm glad we got the Blastbay.
Yeah, me too.
All right. First of all, before asking my questions, I want to welcome you, Philip, because actually the interview is taking me back in time, maybe to 2007, 2008, when I was a gamer. I used to play Tarzan Jr. and the other games that were created by PB Games.
Yeah, I'm so sorry about that. I'm sorry for the trauma that it must have caused.
No, it's bringing a lot of good memories because of the cheats. Actually, I wasn't going to be that good without the cheats. So thank you for having the cheat codes in Tarzan Junior. So I was able to complete the game.
They were made for me because I'm a terrible gamer. Just so you know.
Okay, that helped me as well. So I wasn't also that good gamer. So yeah, but yeah, really having you actually and hearing your voice, it's something really great after all of those years. After now I'm not a gamer, but that always brings those memories of those old days. And then I have my questions. Actually, I have 2 questions. The first one is regarding your plans about other languages and accents. So, for example, are you planning to create voices using the British accent? Also, other languages, maybe languages that aren't Latin, like Arabic, for example. So, are there plans to go in this route, or are you going just to focus at least currently on the US voices? And the second question is regarding, actually, it's still early, but just, do you have any plans regarding the Android version, regarding the pricing? So are you going to charge per voice? Are you going to use the same pricing that is now with the Windows version? Or it's still just early to think about it?
So let me answer the last question first. In terms of the pricing, I haven't really decided on it, but I'm not 100% sure how the Google Play Store allows you to monetize. But ideally, I would have one app, and then you could buy voices as sort of add-ons for that app. That's how I'm going to try to structure it. I'm not 100% sure yet how the monetization framework is set up. But yeah, the idea is to try to have one thing that you download, and then maybe from within that app you can download the voices, and then you buy them separately, but you have one app, I guess, where the voices that you purchase will show up. That would be my ideal, so that you don't have to have separate Play Store downloads for each one. If I can prevent that, it would be. And I would like to go somewhere similar for Windows and Mac as well. Right now, it was just the easiest to package them, voice by voice as a separate installer. But yeah, when I go to Android, it would be better if I can manage to have some kind of hub where you grab the voices. And regarding the first question, yes, I definitely do plan to support other languages. The first one that I'm going to release, well, I have two that are in the pipeline: Swedish and Spanish. Swedish because it is it's my first language, and I've already recorded some data for it based on my voice. That's actually what I started with. The US voices came later. But Swedish is a tonal language, similar to Chinese, not as many tones, but it is still a tonal language, and that presents its own set of difficulties. The actual orthography in terms of the written script, whether it be Latin-based or not, is less important in many respects because you have to translate the text to what is called phonemes first. Once you have phonemes, that's when you can have, your set of sentences for a voice actor to record, and you have the sentences transcribed phonetically, and then you can train the model. But in terms of new languages, the main difficulty actually is to get that text to phoneme translation layer. So you have to take the input text again. The whether it's Latin based or not is not quite as important as whether you can easily translate from the written form of the word to its sound, representation in terms of the phonemes. Like, for example, in English, you would write SH, and oftentimes that is pronounced as sh. So that's one phoneme, but two letters, but just one example. So if a language is regular, such as Spanish is generally regular in the sense that you can read a word, its textual orthographic representation, and you can generally know how it's supposed to be pronounced. I mean, there are some exceptions in every language, even the more regular ones, of course. But the more regular a language is, the easier it is to add support for it. So, Spanish is relatively easy in that regard. Swedish was harder, but I found a lexicon that had a permissive license that I could actually use, which had a good 800,000 words in it. So I was able to sort of take a shortcut there. Otherwise, Swedish is a highly irregular language in terms of pronunciation. So the less data, I guess the less data in terms of, phonetic data that's available for a language, the more I have to do from scratch. So that influences how much time it would take to support a specific language. And there's no general rule here. It's really on a language by language case as to how much work it takes to make a really good voice for it. Now, you can train a really basic voice on just pure text or very, very basic phonetic transcriptions, but the quality will not be what you would expect from a commercial product. So that's why I'm slightly hesitant to promise too much regarding language support at this early stage. All I will say is that I do plan to support as many languages as I possibly can, but it will take time per language. And it also depends, of course, on the size of the potential market for the language. If you have a lot of people who speak the language and who are in need of a TTS, then, of course, that would make it higher priority.
Now, Philip, you mentioned how hard Swedish is. Can you say a little something in Swedish? I don't think I'm familiar with that language. I would say hello to the people in Sweden.
Can I try first? Because I was...
Yeah, Sally, you try it.
I was practicing to welcome him to the podcast. So just correct me if I'm not doing it right. But I know since it's a very difficult and tonal language, I got to say... Tack för att det är med podcast.
Ja, men tack själv. Det är jättetrevligt.
Oh, great.
So what you said was, just for the listeners, you said, thank you for being part of the podcast.
I was telling it to you.
Yeah. And I said in response, well, thank you. It's a pleasure. It's great to be here. Something like that.
Well, I'm right. That's my practice for today.
That's great. It's great.
You know what? Here comes to my question. You can realize I'm a language freak. I was checking all of the languages and all of the available TTS engines, and for accessible Android, I created a list of engines supporting list of languages. I was checking Swedish, both in Acapella, in Google, and also in Vocalizer. You know what? all of the female voices are pretty similar to each other in terms of voices. And when it comes to male voices, they're also kind of like all of them are like recorded by a same person. So when you hear yourself, do you sound like them too?
No, I
Okay,
don't.
good.
I sound like a newscaster from the 1940s, according to that. That's what my mother thinks when she hears the voice. So I guess I have some work to do. I mean, it means it's clear, but,
but
you know,
like I know like it sounds clear, but when you hear yourself as a TTS engine, is a TTS voice, do you think you're doing it right?
I mean, I'm not
Okay.
100% happy with
Since
how I sound, but
like since it's your own language, you can be much more super criticizing yourself.
oh, always. That's why I haven't released it yet.
Yeah.
That's wonderful, though, that you could do these things. And I think something sounding from the 40s actually is really damn good in my books. Guys back then were very clear in their speech. And, it was a great era. And if you have that, I think that's a big plus.
Yeah, but I read it in, if I were to do a similar style of speaking in English, I read it like this. It was very clear, concise, and straight to the point.
You know what, Philip? If it was,
Exactamundo. And that's what I'm
like,
talking about. I like that.
if it was that as a TTS engine, I would definitely go and use it. Like,
Okay.
no hesitation. Definitely.
Okay. I will try.
Yeah, you
Start
should.
menu, run dialogue.
I love it.
Yeah,
Okay.
it does sound. That's what we want, right? We want to be able
Yeah,
to understand
exactly.
it, especially at
look-
high rates. And something like
Yeah.
that sounds like it would translate to a high rate
So what-
better.
Yeah, once you're done in Swedish, just do it for yourself in English, please.
Yeah, I'm going to do that. I mean, I'm highly flattered that actually so many people have asked me to do a voice based on myself, and
Yeah.
while that has a slightly awkward factor to it,
No,
I'll
I'll be one to purchase it, definitely.
Okay, thank you. Then I mean, I've already decided that I'm going to do it. It's just a matter of recording the data set, right? So I have to sit down and record at least a good 4,000 or 5,000 sentences.
Another thing I want to mention, Philip, is that I think you have the right idea. Is that hub that you talked about earlier on, that you talked about. Definitely, it will make sense to just install the app, and then you can purchase the voices that you want, just like Acapella or Vocalizer does it. In that way, people have access to it, so you're not like producing two different things. And I think that's a very good approach, and that's how it ought to be.
Yeah, I mean, there was another part of the question that I forgot to answer. The prices will be slightly lower for the mobile devices, simply because it's more of a custom, in that space. So no, it will not be the same prices as Windows. I don't want to give final prices because I haven't decided yet. But no, it's gonna be a bit lower, simply because it is more akin to what else is available, and so that I'm not too far out of the price range of what people would expect.
Yeah, and you always have the crew from blind Android users and accessible Android you can console with as to what prices to charge. Just kidding, but just an input from us if you wanted to. So
of course.
Something, keep that in mind.
Yeah, I certainly will.
Can you remind us, please, of the prices on Windows currently?
Right now, they're $20 per voice, $20 US.
I just wanted to say sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. But just I was going to tell him that actually the prices on Android are currently just a little bit more, like they are about $5 per voice. If you look at Vocalizer and Acapella, only the Acapella voices the kids' voices are just more expensive. They're about maybe $8, $10. I don't remember because I don't use kids' voices. But if you want to be... I will never buy them for $1. But anyway, actually, the if you want to be like in the same price range, you have to put it like about $4 to $5, I think.
I do want to say I like the approach you took where you can, and I don't know if you're planning on also doing this with Android, but I think it would be a good call if you did, where I can actually use the voice. Like I can install it on my machine and I can see how it works with NVDA, for example. I can adjust the speed. I can, see what it's going to sound like, how I'm going to be using in the exact situation where I'm going to be using it. rather than just like a sample that I have to listen to. And I think that goes a long way in convincing me as a user whether it's going to be worth purchasing or not. So if you did something similar on Android, I think, people could decide ahead of time whether they're going to, whether it's going to be worth their money or not. So
Right.
yeah, I like that approach. And it just, for listeners who haven't tried it, what happens is, I don't know, a minute or two, it sounds normal, and then it just goes down to sounding really bad, awful quality. You can still understand it. So as a blind user, you're not stuck in an engine that you can no longer use. You can get out of it. And, if you reset your screen reader or whatever, the next time you bring it up, you'll be able to use it again for another minute or whatever. But I think that's the perfect solution to try to convince somebody to buy something.
Well, yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because I mean I definitely agree. We have an expression in Sweden which is you buy the pig in the sack, which means you don't really know what you're buying. So I didn't want to do that. So I mean, an audio sample can only go so far. So if I can do a good trial, which I think this is pretty reasonable. I mean, I've gotten mostly good feedback about the trial system. And yes, I mean I do intend to do the same for Android. Within the the allowed I guess confines of what the what the monetization framework allows me to do. I'm going to try to get as close to the current trial system that I have on Windows on the mobile devices also, because I do feel like it is important that the user gets to really evaluate the voice on their own device with their own text on their own time. If you can't do that, then you can't really make an informed judgment as to whether you think it's right for you. So I certainly intend to continue that trend.
Another thing, Philip, that I know when it comes to TTS engines that people like to see, and we don't often have that. I think probably we have a couple that have that implementation. And I'm thinking of the likes of the defunct Eloquence that we no longer have on Android, and then a cappella voices and vocalizer, I think. So maybe 3 of them. In other words, I'm talking about like maybe dictionary entries here, for example. One wants to change a certain way a word is pronounced. If that's going to be something that could be done, I think this is one of the things that people often ask for when it comes to TTS engines. But like I said, not even the mighty Google TTS engine has that feature.
Well, I've already implemented it. It's just that it's not documented yet because I still have to iron out a couple of issues with it. But basically, even in the current versions that are released, it looks for a specific file, which is a lexical addenda file, which has entries where you write the word and then you transcribe it with the phonemes. I want to make that a little bit more robust. It works, but I want to try to make it, I guess, a little bit less error prone to edit as a user. And then I'm going to write a little documentation, a little guide, and put it on the website probably, which tells you how to actually insert custom entries to your lexicon. For example, right now the voice says, instead of cyclone, it says cyclone, which needs to be fixed. There are a few others like brand names and so on that people have mentioned. So yes, I will allow people to customize that, and of course that will also carry over to mobile devices.
I have a couple of questions about that word replacement thing. Will it work with phrases or only singular words? And also, can you replace it with nothing? Because the situation I find myself in a lot is certain phrases that are always said that I don't want to hear. Like, for example, every time I pick up my Samsung phone, it reminds me, TalkBack reminds me where the fingerprint sensor is. It's located near the bottom center of the screen. This is not something I need to be reminded of literally every time I turn my phone screen on. So I'd like to be able to take an entire phrase and say, instead of this, just don't say anything. Like, just don't bother me with this. Is that something that's possible?
Oh, it's certainly possible. It's more of a, could you say like a design principle as to where do you draw the line between the screen reader and the text-to-speech engine, right? So there's 2 ways of doing replacements. Like if you're talking about replacing an entire sentence, you're not talking about phonetic transcriptions so much. You're talking about just, if you see this text, say this instead, and you would transcribe it with text. Like if you can write a completely different word or nothing at all. That kind of thing is just basic, find and replace, which happens at runtime, right? In terms of, for example, NVDA already has that. It has a speech dictionary, so you can already do that. But what I'm working on at this point is the more fine-grained phonetic transcription, which is currently on a word-by-word basis. But in terms of just doing fundamental, basic text replacement, yes, it's certainly something I could implement. But the question is more a philosophical one, in the sense that shouldn't the screen reader be configurable? Like, how much do you want the TTS to deviate from the text that it is given? That's kind of the fundamental question: is do you want the TTS to, for example, I'm going to remove some abbreviations right now that the voice is expanding. It does, it will say product Idaho, for example, instead of product ID, things like that. It's silly. I don't like that. So I'm going to remove that. And I guess to carry that further, it's certainly I can implement the text replacement, but the question is just, is that something that maybe the screen reader should do? And if it doesn't, then maybe I would consider doing it. But I
agree that the screen reader should, and CSR can. Jishua, the third-party screen reader on Android, can do this, but TalkBack will never do this. Like, it's such a big. It seems like a feature that if it's ever added, it will be a long time before it's added. So at this point, the TTS engine doing it is my only hope as a TalkBack user.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe when it comes to Android, I'll bug you about it.
Yeah. I mean, with that being said, then maybe it's something I'll put in. Like if it's if it's important enough for a lot of people, because there is whenever you put a new feature in, there's a slight maintenance burden. You add a bit of complexity to it, right? And this particular one is not that complicated, but you always have to be restrictive as to what you add in terms of features, because you're going to have to support it for many years to come. So this one is not particularly difficult at all. So that was more of a philosophical question, right? But yeah, I mean, if it's important to a lot of users, I will certainly put that in.
That's really wonderful, Philip, because I know that people like those type of things. I'm looking at you, John, here. But we're talking about this now, June 28th. And so do you think, this is a very hypothetical one, but I'm hoping and believing, I haven't, heard from you and seeing or hearing your enthusiasm, Philip. I'm almost optimistic that, before this time next year, we'll probably at least have a nice beta going on, a functional beta going on. So when do you think tentatively you would start work, on the Android version? Would it be sometime before this year runs out, early next year, so that we'll have something in the beta to, play with?
I've already started working on it. I've already started working on it. It's hard to give an estimate because it is so early, and I'm a single developer. And it is not my main territory. I mean, I've developed for Android before, and it was a good experience for the most part. But it is really hard to say how long it'll be before I'm able to take it all the way to something that people can install and actually use, on a real device. Of course, a lot of the testing early on will be through the emulator. But I've already started the work, and certainly I would be very disappointed if it takes me a year to port it to Android. I certainly hope it wouldn't take me that long. I would be hoping for some kind of testable thing before the end of the year, but don't quote me on that. It's just what I'm hoping for.
That's okay. Everything considered, you may have a test version going out before the end of the year or maybe early next year. So whatever it is, but the most important thing though is that you're actually dedicated to it, because it's another thing to say I'm going to do something versus getting it started. And if you actually have started the framework and all of that, I think that gives a lot of our listeners a lot of hope and believing that this is a guy that really means what he says, and that's the most important thing. And regarding other functionalities and all of that. Those are things you can work on. I think that the most important thing is to focus on getting a product out, and then down the road you could add or refine some of the features that need to be refined. So I think that's how it ought to be.
Yeah, I mean, for example, a lot of people are asking me about specific languages and other features, and so it is always a balancing act for me to try to decide where is my development time going to go. Where's the most ground to be gained. Certainly, I know that other platforms is a big deal, so that's it's a very, very high on the priority list. But there's also I get a lot of feedback. Like, people want to be able to control pauses. People want different languages. People want new voices. It's a lot. I mean, don't get me wrong. It is wonderful to see all of the great feedback that I've been receiving, and even the feedback that is not positive. I've seen nothing but constructive feedback. I'll say that. So there's been no outright negative feedback. The stuff that isn't necessarily positive has still been constructive, and I really appreciate that. So it's just a matter for me right now to find where is my time best spent.
So in this case, I just want to say, for a single developer, I know how hard these things are, and you're going to be developing for 2 operating systems. Like, you're in Windows right now, and then you will be going to Android. I want to say to all of us listening to this podcast, please support Philip whatever you can, in whatever means you can. Try to purchase the Windows version, even though this is your primary TTS engine, because these things are really difficult, and I know many developers are lost in the way before starting the final release. So please support this guy whatever it means you can.
Thank you very much for that.
And don't crack, actually.
Yeah,
they shouldn't crack as well. So it's very important. Don't think to crack, just think to support. And you think this problem on Android. I don't want to disappoint you from now, but I want to just tell you that there's a real problem, especially on Android. People are just cracking every app. Like, they're spending a lot of time just cracking apps, just for the sake of cracking, nothing more sometimes. So I wish you the best, and I support Saleh in what he said. Actually, people should support you and not crack.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, I did make a conscious decision regarding the licensing system on Windows that, it is not tied to your hardware. It is not tied to an internet connection. It is usable as many times as you need it. It will not stop working, after a year or 2 or 3. It's just going to continue working. And, that is something that I had to weigh the pros and cons. Of course, people can share serial numbers. Now, please don't do that. But, the reason I made it like that is because I prefer to have, a more of a trust, honor-based licensing model, which, some people might think that's naive. I think it is actually showing faith that my customers, my users will, appreciate that gesture. And, as a result, not send it around, because I am convinced that the absolute majority of people, who are looking for TTS engines, if they see that the product is good, or at least reasonable, they will see that there's a genuine effort going into it, and they will, not want to pass it around. I mean, as opposed to if I were to make something that was highly locked down, you had to be online every 10 days, something like that. I hate those kind of systems myself, and philosophically, I just found it very difficult to implement something that I couldn't, stand behind myself as a potential end user. So, for me, I chose the wide open kind of path. I mean, the serial number, let's be honest, it is more of a moral deterrent, right? Like, you see that there's a serial number, that way it's a commercial product, but you still have the complete freedom, because you bought it, right? If you bought the product, you should be allowed to use it, without limitations. That is my philosophy, and that is why I chose this particular, A, the trial system, and B, the way of licensing the product itself after purchase. It is not perhaps seen as often nowadays, as it once was, but it is the kind of licensing system that I prefer and that I can, sign my name on. So that's just so, with all that being said, yes, please don't share serial numbers. It does a lot of damage, especially for a small business like mine. So if you've bought it, I'm really, really grateful for that. But keep the serial numbers to yourself as they were intended.
So I just want to be kind and tell you, you're new in the town of Android. So just saying, please don't do it is not enough for Android users, especially many TTS engines are being discontinued just for this purpose. That people just crack for no reason. So you should have some precautions rather than saying, please don't do this.
I
It won't be
understand that.
enough.
But
Yeah.
it is more of a philosophical,
Yeah.
standpoint of mine, and it is the same on
I
Windows,
totally
right?
get it, and I'm
Yeah.
here with you in this case, but it won't be enough to say that on Android users.
No, but I don't think Android users are inherently worse than Windows users, right? Like, I just think that people will do what they will do. And, of course, I know that serial numbers will be passed around. All I can say is that, to the legitimate users that I'm actually targeting here, if somebody is going to steal it, they're not going to be my customers anyways, right? So I prefer not to focus on them and just focus on the people who are honest, which I think is the absolute majority of people.
That's a good point. And a lot of people who do steal this sort of stuff, they're just stealing it because they can, and they have a whole collection of stuff that they're not actually even using, right? So I think it does sound great. I do like the sound of the two voices you've released. They're natural enough, but still very clear, and they're responsive, and I think that's what people will like, and I think people will buy these voices. So I think you've done a great job here. And like you said, I think it's good just to focus on the potential customers, and ignore everyone else.
Yeah, basically. That's been my strategy. I know that it is somewhat controversial. People, have told me that, yes, I'll have a bunch of stuff stolen. I understand that. But again, those are not the people that I'm targeting.
I do want to mention something here before we let you go, because I know you gave us about an hour and we're over that hour. Of course, we didn't get started on time. But anyway, I just want to say thank you so much. And frankly, guys, if you are listening to us, and most especially you listeners of the Blind Android Users podcast, I trust you guys, and I don't think you guys are going to be the ones to be stealing this. And so I want us to support this guy, as Sally has indicated. It's very important that we give him our support. I'm going to be buying it myself, because I think it's important to do that, and most especially the structure that you have it planning on implementing on Android, where it's going to be through that one hub. You install the app, and then you have the in-app purchases of the voices that you like, just like we see in Acapella and Vocalize and all of that. That's a very good strategy, and I want to say thank you so much. And be sure, though, that when we have something going on, we have a product, then you're going to come back. And also, we do have our listener session coming up at the end of July. I want you to come in. It's just an open forum, and because some people may have some questions for you and things of that nature. But keep that in mind. I think that would be July, what's the last Saturday of July of this year, guys? Is that the 28th? I don't remember, but somewhere in there. So put that on your calendar. Philip, I think the last July or last Saturday of July, we're going to have our first or third quarter open listener session. So I would like for you to come and be able to meet some more people, and if they have other questions and things of that nature. But we do want to let you go so you can eat that dinner. I know it's way past dinner time, but we want to say thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts, and looking forward to seeing that Android version coming through, because it's what we're looking for. And from me, I want to say goodbye. Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me to the show, and yeah, I'd love to participate in the listener forum as well. So just let me know, and yeah, I'll be sure to be there. I look forward to it.
Okay, I just want to say well, good evening.
God kväll själv. Tack så mycket.
It was nice meeting you.
Yes, same to you. Thank you all for for the invite. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Philip. And I hope that in the next interview, you will be announcing the Android Tarzan Jr.
No, 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 no.
But with cheat codes. Without cheat
Yeah.
codes, I'm not gonna buy it.
No, no. Well, no, I'm afraid that will not be happening. I'm sorry.
All right.
Well,
But yeah,
thank you so much
it was
for
great. It was great to be on. I hope I was able to answer the questions that you had. And
And I hope
know.
I was able to speak some Swedish.
yes, you did. Yes, you did.
All good things must end. Thus, it's curtain drawing time, bringing us to the close of this week's episode. Coming up, though, we give you information on how to get hold of us. And that's it, guys. Thanks so much for listening to us this week. Again, as always, and John is standing by to give you information on how to get hold of us. And here's John to give you that information on how to contact us.
To contact us, simply send an email to contactus@blindandroidusers.com. If you'd prefer, you can leave a voicemail by calling +1 307 202 9797. You can join our mailing list by sending a blank email to blindandroidusers+subscribe@groups.io. You can join our Facebook and Telegram groups or subscribe to our YouTube channel using the links in the podcast show notes or YouTube video description. And you can find all of this information and more at our website, blindandroidusers.com.
Thank you so much, John, for that information. And guys, with that, we come to the end of this week's episode. From me, it's goodbye. Looking forward to seeing you guys next week. That's going to be our next episode in the month of July. And goodbye from me.
Thanks, as always, for listening. See you next week.
Have a great week. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Have a great week.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Blind Android Users Podcast. Until we see you next week, don't forget to leave us your comments and suggestions via our email contact or using any of our social media sites. Have a great week.